Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. Well, we are wrapping up our fourth season here at our podcast. We're excited to be feeling like we have 4 years of podcasts behind us and looking forward to a season ahead. So we are going to start talking a little bit about it this week, next week on the podcast, kind of get you primed for where we're going. And we've got a great couple topics to wrap up the season with, don't we, Laurel?
We do. And I can't wait to wrap up the season and talk about what's coming next for us.
Yeah.
It's so hard to believe 4 years of all of this goodness with you, Laurel.
Yeah. All this beautiful work that we've talked about. So, if you're new to our podcast, we're welcoming you. We hope you stay with us. We hope you go back and listen to some of the shows. We have so much in there for you. We've been talking about the inner work and what our belief is around the inner work, which is if you do your inner work, it becomes beautiful work and it makes your life beautiful. And so we love to have conversations about it. We want to make it normal conversation that you can have with your family, with your friends, that you can just talk about as if you were talking about anything else, a sports game, a TV show, or anything else. And it really is way more interesting than those things, I think. So, yeah, we're here to encourage that conversation.
We are. And you know what I love about it?
Yeah.
When I think about how we are prone to talk about, I'll say, light things with other people, right? Easy things.
Yeah.
Like bringing this conversation to the world and normalizing the conversation about inner work and creating a life that you love. Like this should be a light and easy conversation, especially if it comes from your heart.
Yeah, it really can be. And I think it's getting used to it and also finding people that really want to have those kind of conversations with you. And that's part of the beautiful work is finding your circle of people that you can have your conversations with that will really wake up this part of your life and allow you to have the support that you need and the encouragement that you need and have those kind of, people in your life that will support you in dreaming into exactly what you want and holding that for you. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful stuff.
It is.
And Laurel, today we're going to explore a little bit. I don't know. I guess we hit this here and there sometimes, but we're talking about being true to yourself, and we're focusing in a little bit on the different stages of life today. And I feel like this season, as we were having our guests talking, right, and sharing with us about their beautiful work and their beautiful life, I think it became evident, I think Laurel and I are at one stage of life, a little later stage of life, and we had a lot of guests that are younger and in different stages of life than us. And so, to think about how the beautiful work evolves over time. And yet the essence of that beautiful work is really about coming in and being true to yourself, no matter what stage of life you're in. And I think that that's kind of what we want to circle around here today, and then talk a little bit more about the stages. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah.
And
I hadn't really given much thought to our guest being in a very different stage than we are.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot in our work, I think, that we are with people of all different stages of life.
Yeah.
And we all bring to the conversation the perspective, the wisdom, the insight, the experience from our whole life.
Yeah.
No matter what stage we're in.
Absolutely. And I think that, honoring that we're in a certain stage of life, right? That the work and what comes up for us is often different in different stages of life. And yet it's going to be unique for each one of us, even though, there may be some similarities in the stages of life. So it's kind of like always coming back and being true to your story, to yourself, to what's really authentically and truly coming up for you, and doing the work of always honoring that, right? And I think the honoring part is how you stay true to yourself.
I do too. And then the other piece that was just coming up as you were talking is allowing curiosity, not just about the stage you're in, but about the stage that everyone else is in, right?
Yeah.
Being aware, being cognizant, being kind and respectful of the differences, just not in who we are individually, so that we allow other people to honor their true self, who they really are. And while we're doing the same, but having that respect for this might be why our opinion is different from one another.
Yeah, yeah. So some of the things, as we talk about, honoring other people's stages of life as well as our own, one of the ways to be able to help yourself get good at that is, I know for me, it's learning some ways to just ask questions and have people encourage them to really speak into what's going on for them, right? Be invitational around this
Yes.
kind of conversation, and then really inviting them to listen into their heart, right? And what's being spoken from within, right? That inner self. Because oftentimes we have so much chatter, so much noise that we're taking in, so much other information that we're taking in. And a lot of what we're talking about here on the podcast and here on this episode today is listening really within. Because if you're going to honor yourself, you have to know what the messages are coming from within.
Yes. And so, how do you do that, Laurel?
I feel like one of the things that, when somebody starts talking about something, maybe, and they want to talk about it, and you're not really sure what to say, you can always say, "Can you tell me a little bit more about that?"
Yeah.
Right? I feel like, "Can you just tell me a little bit more?" Or, "Wow, that's really interesting. I never thought of anything like that." I want to know more. I want to know more is a great way to, invite somebody to tell you more.
Yeah. And that is one of the questions I use a lot, you know, to invoke curiosity into the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I think, whew, getting good as a listener is really about learning how to also quiet your own inner dialogue while somebody else is talking. And I think that, again, that's another skill that you have to develop and you have to practice with time. And I think you only get good at it by really practicing. What do you think,
Yes.
Laurel?
It's so true. And we've talked about this before, in that often we are kind of listening to someone and we're formulating our response or our reply or what we're going to say next, and while someone else is talking. And so in doing that, we completely forget how to really listen, how to actively engage and listen. So how can we just pause and really be intentional?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we have to be able to trust ourselves to do that, because what that means is being able to be comfortable not having a response,
Yeah. Yeah. That's really
just
big.
holding that person
Yeah.
and allowing them to verbalize or express what they need to.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit before about the group agreements that we use, here in
Yes.
our groups. And one of the first one is no advice giving. And I feel like that's one of the things, if you're thinking, wow, I'd really like to practice, getting better at being a good listener and helping others be true to themselves as well as myself, right? Just practice no advice giving for a while. To stand in the place where you say to yourself, I don't have anybody's answer. I don't know what's best for them. They know what's best for them somewhere inside. And I just want to encourage them to find that answer from within, right? That pushes you into the space of not making suggestions, not giving advices, but just really asking more and more questions to try to really help them find what is coming from within, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in thinking about that, when you think about the stages of life that we go through, I mean, we can build on that. If we learn that skill early, we can continue to build on that and just be, a better listener. And that skill will take us, it will last through many seasons of our life.
Yeah, and if you're coming to it late in life, I mean, for some people, some of this work doesn't even happen until later in life, much later in life, and
That
that's
was
okay
me.
too. Yeah, but even later than, when you came into it, right? Like some
Yeah.
people come into it very, very late in life, towards the end of life, because something is called to them or something has happened that's brought them into the space of really being able to look more deeply within and want to have maybe healed relationships before they leave the earth or whatever is the motivation. And so whatever the motivation is, it's good, right?
Yeah.
Whenever it comes in for you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Without judgment. Yes.
Yeah. But I think that, the earlier you get started, obviously, the more skilled you're going to be at it and the more potential you have then to develop the kind of relationships you want and also to bring all of this goodness, right, into all the aspects of your life. How do you weave it into even your work relationships, right? And
Yes.
and enhance all the creativity and the positivity there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to know that, there's no rush, there's no right or wrong, that
Yeah.
the path that each of us is on is our own, right?
Yeah.
And how we grow and change during the various stages is really the right thing for us.
Yeah. Well, I would say one of the things that's come up for me, around this conversation, which I really, I don't know, I would love to hear more from our listeners around, what's happening for them in their lives in general and kind of in the world today. But I feel like we're in such a time of change, Laurel, and this time of really wanting to honor more and more, right? How to be true to ourselves, how to speak our mind more clearly, but also how to be able to do it well. Because I think a lot of people are also tired of the rhetoric, tired of the discourse that's not going well. And so we are trying to figure out how to do it better. And I think the beginning of how to do that better in so many ways is being able to speak clearly into what you really are feeling,
Mm-hmm.
what you believe, what
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about, what your opinions are, and using those words, right? Not as this is the facts, this is the fact of life, or this is the big truth, right? But this is just what I'm thinking about. This is what's going on for me right now. This is how I'm feeling about what's happening in the world today, right? Rather than a right or wrong kind of discourse. Yeah.
Yes. And that is so important when I think about, you know, our becoming, like our changing and growing and learning, right? What is right for us in this time? What agrees with us, what we want to prioritize, what we believe. And then where I think we get into trouble is when we are not allowing others to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And there comes the listening part. There
Yes.
comes the curiosity part. Your big
Yes.
word. I always associate the word curiosity with you, always being able to come back to that stance of what's
Yes.
happening here?
Yes.
What's going on? I
That's
don't
right.
know. Right?
Right. And focusing on the what, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on the what rather than the why, right?
Yeah.
Because I do really see this, the breakdown in not honoring the stage we're in, not honoring what we need and want, and not being able to allow for someone else to have the same,
Yeah.
their needs and wants. It really is because we get into the why. Why is this happening? Why does that person feel this way? Why don't they share my opinion? Right?
Yeah.
Why don't they experience life the way I do?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was, I don't know, maybe sometime in my 30s. And I don't remember, it was when I was doing a lot of my own personal healing growth work. But I felt like I had, this real clarity around the question why, how, and maybe it was when I was doing my counseling training, how it really wasn't a very helpful question for a lot of people because a lot of times we don't have an immediate answer for why something's happening for us or why we think what we think or why we feel what we feel. And so as soon as somebody poses the question, why, it makes us feel like we're supposed to have an answer.
Yes.
And if we don't have an answer, we get stuck in that process versus just wondering more about what's really going on. What are you really feeling? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And our brain and our nervous system, when we don't have the answer, one, our brain is looking for the answer. It's just spinning data looking for a solution. And
Yeah.
our nervous system, gets activated.
Yeah.
And I do think that the other question of how often slows us down as well,
Yeah.
right? How can I convince this person that my experience is the right one? Or how can I solve this disagreement between what we both believe? When we
Yeah.
get stuck in the how, it's the same thing happens.
Yeah.
Our brain and our nervous system are just activated trying to solve the problem. But
Yeah.
there is no problem when you're in the what.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just talking and sharing about it, right? And getting in touch with whatever is true for you internally, right?
Yeah.
And that whole thing can actually settle your nervous system once you get used to going into the space of just being the observer of what's true for you in that moment, right? And being able to just share kind of easily and readily about that. That's a practice that you only get good with, again, with practice, right? With
Yes.
the doing of it. Yeah.
Yes. And as you were talking, I was thinking about this doesn't only happen with someone else. When I think about honoring the stages of life, it's not questioning why maybe at the stage I'm in now, I have different beliefs and opinions than I did 20 years ago. And letting that be, right? Not forcing myself to hold on to my past experience or my past opinions, beliefs, desires, right? And allowing myself to be in the stage I'm in and do things differently or think differently than I did before.
Yeah. And maybe want different things than you did before.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So let's come back to this being true to yourself as kind of a basic practice.
Okay.
So I feel like being true to yourself is being clear, right? And we talk about this. If we had some basic kind of strategies that you and I have talked about over time
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and here on the podcast, right? One of them is knowing your values,
Yes.
right? So really getting clear about what are your values right now, and of course they will move around a little bit as you go through your stages of life, right?
Yes.
So that's one to check in on. I don't know, every 5 to 10 years, maybe you just do a little values assessment. You go back, you look at what you had before, you look at your values list, you go, wow, am I still in the same place with this? Or have things moved around a little bit? Have my priorities changed? I don't know, but I feel like when you're staying true to yourself, sometimes when your values shift, but you haven't caught up with that, you feel out of alignment.
Yes. And I would even suggest that it doesn't have to be, every year, every 5 years, whatever that looks like. It could really be when you find yourself in an uncomfortable place, when you
Yeah.
find yourself, maybe it's a new source of conflict or discomfort. And the question that you could ask is, have my values changed? Like, what is the value or the lack of value in this moment that's causing me this discomfort,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because it is I guess, a great indicator or a true sign of something has shifted in you. If something new, and I don't mean new in a way that you've never experienced it before, but, trying to come up with an example where maybe you've experienced the same thing. Maybe I'm going to say it's a conversation, at Thanksgiving dinner. And it's the same conversation every year, and it's never bothered you before, but this year it starts to bother you. I mean, I have a great example right in this moment. And it comes into some conversations with my husband about things that go on in the work world. Now, he works in a predominantly male office workplace in an industry that is predominantly male. And so sometimes conversation comes up about things that are happening, in the industry. And it bothers me now. And it's surprising to both of us because I worked in that not the same industry, but a similar industry for decades and could let things slide. But there's something that's changed in the world, and there's something that has changed in me. I value my voice more, right? I use my voice more. And now I can't be silent when this conversation comes up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, and so I have to honor the stage of life that I am in now and honor what I want for the world now.
And I think that when we talk about being true to yourself, right, in honoring yourself. So it will just continue your example if that's okay, because I
Yes,
feel like it's
please.
a really good one. And if you weren't speaking up and saying what you thought at this point in time and saying how you felt, right, oftentimes then we feel like we're dishonoring ourself or betraying ourself
Yes.
by not speaking into something that we believe in that we feel strongly about. And so to stay true to ourselves oftentimes does mean having our voice be in alignment with our feelings, our thoughts, and our being, right?
And our values.
Yeah, and our values, and not in a way where we're becoming aggressive
No.
or causing any kind of, it doesn't have to be a big conflict, right? It's just, no, I just feel differently now. This is how I feel about it. And this is what I would, if I was there, this is what I would want to say, kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see it differently than you do.
yeah, yeah,
And those kind of conversations come up a lot, right? When we grow and change over time and
yeah.
the world around us grows and changes over time, right? And so how can we honor where we are in the stage that we're in and not lose ourselves to who we used to be?
Yeah. So that comes into let's talk about another practice that we've talked about a lot as one of our steady kind of strategies of doing the inner work. And that is really being clear with yourself about what you want and why you want it. Right. And when we do that work, oftentimes what it leads us to is how do we want to feel? Right.
Yes.
And that does change again in different stages of life. We want different things. We might want to feel different things. We might want to experience different things. And so, if we aren't clear in that, and we're still kind of stuck in the stage of what we wanted before, and we haven't fully brought ourselves forward to be in alignment and true to where we are now, we're kind of living in this conflicted state internally. So doing that, again, check in every once in a while if we're out of sorts or things aren't going right or we're having weird conversations all the time or whatever. It's like, okay, kind of regroup, right? And journaling is great. I love journaling for this one, right? This one's great to talk about later, I think, and to have some good safe place to talk, to say what you want. But I think the beginning of it often can be really great in journaling because to free float, free write, unedited, just let yourself dream, let yourself want, let yourself wonder, really tune into how you want to feel. Journaling can be a great medium for
It
that.
really can. And no one is there to tell you that you can't have that or you shouldn't want that or
Yeah.
any of the things that we may hear from other people.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I first found out I was going to be a grandmother, and I told a friend, and I said, and she said, "Oh my God, you must be so excited!" And I really wasn't excited. I really, at some level in me, in my own being, I really wasn't ready to be a grandmother. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I can wait longer. I'm not ready to manage what that means for me wanting to spend time with a grandchild. I'm already got a full life. I don't, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's like being honoring, right? Being true to myself, right? Being able to say that And yet it was coming anyway. And I knew I was going to manage it because,
Yeah,
that's who I am. I'm going to do it. And I want to, know my grandchildren.
that's right.
But I felt what I felt.
Yeah.
Right. And
So
if I
how did you
wasn't ready, I wasn't ready.
did you process it through journaling?
You know, I think I did a little bit, but I think a lot of it was honestly, it was processing emotionally the surprise, right? And the conflicted feelings I had. There was a
Right.
lot about really just letting myself feel what I felt and come to terms with that, and then be ready to greet it when it came.
And this is a great example because you know, it's something in life, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here, but something in life that happens and you're supposed to feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for you to be able to process the conflicting feelings, right? And
Yeah.
your thoughts that were causing some of those feelings,
Yeah.
right? And the fears of whatever it might be. What
Yeah.
is wrong with me if I don't feel the way 99% of women do when they know they're going to be a grandmother?
That's right.
Like you have to have a safe place to process those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a great tool to be able to honor where you are in your life and the stage you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the really interesting aspects that's coming up for me as we're talking about this being in different stages and being true to yourself has been interesting for me is having friendships of people that are in different stages of life.
My favorite part of the world right now
Yeah.
because we learn and grow from experiencing, you know, people and relationships that are in different phases.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you feel like you don't have that kind of network, just being open to
Mm-hmm.
maybe receiving it or connecting with it or
Mm-hmm.
finding places where you might, connect with people with different stages. Sometimes our family doesn't provide that quality of connection, maybe that we
Right.
want, that could have that intergenerational or whatever,
Yes.
experience that often feeds our ability to really be true to ourselves in different stages and see it's different in different stages of life.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to see it up close and personal, and like I have women that are ahead of me, right? And they're kind of who I look to. I go, ooh, I want to be like kind of like them,
Yeah.
when I get older, right? Yeah,
And I see this a lot, and I put it in the same category as having friendships or relationships that are in different cultures or different religions or whatever, whatever area that you can learn and grow,
yeah,
learn from others who are different than you. And
yeah,
and I think being in different stages is the same thing. And being in different stages doesn't necessarily mean age. I mean, it could, but I think about women that are my age that maybe never married or never had children, right? They're in a different stage than I am,
yeah,
even though we're the same age.
yeah,
Or it could be someone who's a different age that is, I'll use the example of the stage I'm in now in my career, like self-employed, a solopreneur, right? And age becomes irrelevant when you are in the same stage as someone.
yeah,
But I do love to think about it as, our life is richer because we experience people in different ways, different cultures, different ages. And
yeah,
I know, I put myself often in situations where I might be the oldest in the room. And I'm okay with that, right?
yeah.
Because there's so much energy and hope.
Inspiration.
That's right, being
Yeah.
with people that are different than me.
Yeah. One of the other places that I feel like I've found recently more inspiration and also kind of the encouragement to stay true to myself has been in reading other women's stories, real stories, right?
Yes.
Biographies. are listening to other women's stories. That's one of the beautiful things about the podcasting world today, too, right? Where we can hear other women's
Yes.
stories. And I think for women, it's really important to hear other women's stories, right? We've lived in a patriarchy for so long
Yeah.
that we've also often just taken for granted, right? The men's story, the men's hero story. And oftentimes, as we start listening, women's heroine stories have a little different flavor or twist to them. And
Yeah.
sometimes they can resonate more strongly with us and be a
Hmm.
stronger source of inspiration. And also, that inspiration, like when you hear a woman's or person's story where they've been true to themselves and they feel like they've triumphed because of it,
Yes.
it's
It's
so inspiring and
it's
uplifting.
so inspiring. I mean, you and I just read a book. It was your recommendation, but it was Ina Garten's book. I've
Yeah.
forgotten the name of it already. Do you remember the name
Be
of it?
ready. Be ready
The
when
luck comes.
be
Be
ready when
ready when the luck comes,
yeah.
right? And I found her story so inspiring and fascinating,
Yeah.
right? It was really, really beautiful to read the story of her life in different stages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well,
That might be all we have to say about this topic.
I feel like we could go on a little bit, but also feel like, look, it's summertime here in the East Coast as we send our podcast out to you. We're in the summertime routine a little bit. Our July month every season has been a little bit of a wrap up of the season, a little bit of a highlight of some of the things that have gone on. And I know this season, having guests on every month regularly was such a big change for us. And so to
So
be
much
able,
fun.
yeah, and it was very inspiring for us to hear other people's beautiful work and to hear again and be affirmed again, right? That when you do your inner work, when you do your beautiful work, your life really does shape up to be beautiful in so many ways. And being true to yourself was always a theme in everybody's story, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And think about the guests that we had in all different phases of their life, right? And different places geographically, physically. But that was it. It was creating your life
Yeah.
by staying true to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So we invite you to do the same out there, to be true to yourself and take these just few simple strategies that we shared here, towards the end of the show. And if you feel like you want to, work on really aligning more fully with the true you within, start those strategies. Don't wait another minute. Take this summertime, or if you're on the other side of the earth from us. If it's wintertime, snuggle in with a hot cup of cocoa or whatever, and or cold iced tea if that's your choice.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Get curious.
let's get curious. Yeah. All
Well,
right,
thank you.
Laurel. Thank you, and I'll see you next time for our final show, season 4. Okay,
We'll be back for more.
we'll be back. Bye for now.
Bye.